Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to REUZEL Facebook Live. Today we have Mr. Paul Dunning. Paul, how you doing today, buddy?
Hey, doing well, everyone. I'm here in Omaha, Nebraska. We had, and it's actually going to be 76 degrees this weekend, so that's how you know you're in the Midwest. But thanks, everyone, for tuning in. If you guys have any questions while we're chatting, you can ask in the comment section, and Curtis will be able to relay those to me, and we can get your questions asked. You know, with everybody staying home and everything, I know it's kind of stressful, and you know, it's kind of challenging sticking around at home. But something I found that really helps me is actually cutting on mannequins. If you can't go to your shop, you know, get your tools and cut on a mannequin, and it kind of helps bring a little bit of a sense of normalcy back into your life. So what I want to do is we'll cut on a mannequin. We'll chat about kind of how we're going to start cutting when we get through all of this together. You know, we're doing this together. It's kind of a team effort. So when all this is over, obviously, everyone's going to have a lot more hair than they normally do when they come in. So I think that's why it's important today. I'm going to chat about clipper over comb cutting technique because it's a great way to remove a lot of bulk. It's a great way to remove a lot of length, and it's also a good pace of cutting hair. The important thing is that we're going to be really busy when this is all over, so we need to be able to cut a good amount of hair confidently and in the same shapes that our clients are used to. So we talk about clipper over comb hair cutting a lot. REUZEL actually has a clipper carnage class that we teach that's all about clipper over comb cutting technique. So if you guys have any questions about what kind of tools you should be using, not necessarily name brands, but the types of tools, go ahead and let us know. So what I want to focus on today is a little something I thought of. It's that consistency of control equals confidence. I'm kind of an alliteration guy, but we need to have plenty of control over our tools while we're working so that we can be confident that every stroke that we do is a good one. That helps lead to a good pace. That helps lead to a good shape. So like with all of our cuts, we're going to start from the baseline down. And that baseline starts at what we call the apex of the recession. You might not want to say recession to your client, but the apex of your recession is right here in this triangle there. And we're going to work down from there. Now, these mannequins, their head shapes obviously aren't normal. They're very flat. And this section right here is really small. Something that's important to remember is that your client's head obviously has a lot of roundness to it. Now, we talk a lot about how important it is to have square shapes. Another thing that we can achieve while we're cutting clipper over comb is making sure that, let me get this in frame, we're 90 degrees up and down when we work. So if you stick on a clipper guard and run it all the way around one's head, you round out what could have been that 90-degree angle. So what we want to do is we want to use our tools to bridge gaps in the head shape. So let me show how we're going to do that. That's part of the reason that we start up here at the top of the baseline and going down, is that you don't start from the bottom and end up running up the curvature of the gentleman's head. You end up kind of using that cliff of maybe his parietal ridge and jumping down off of it, boom, and making that a nice flat shape. So we'll take this baseline and we're going to go diagonally through the back here too. Come on, friend. We'll go diagonally down through the back here, and that's going to make sure that our taper is consistent all the way through. And like I said, if you guys have any questions about, certain ways that we work with our clipper over comb technique, feel free to leave them in the comments and we'll just chat about them as we roll. Great. Now, I like to use a wireless adjustable clipper, mostly wireless because I like to move around and chat and gesture a lot while I'm hanging out with my client. When we use an adjustable clipper, though, as we go clipper over comb, it's important to keep it shut. That reason being is, like I was saying, it's important to have consistent control for our confidence. So lots and lots of tension, make sure that those lines that we cut are very smooth and straight. That's the other reason that I use the finer teeth of the comb rather than the wider teeth, because we get lots and lots of tension, and that hair doesn't move as I slide my comb over my or my clipper over my comb. So I really liked when Court said, I don't know if you guys have been keeping up with all of our guys, but it's been really fun listening to everybody's kind of different interpretations of how this works. But something Court Dingwall said, one of my buddies, is that if you're going to take this out at a 90-degree angle to start building that square shape, you should be able to rest a marble on this and it won't roll back way, either way. So it's important to have it really flat and coming straight out to you. Now, after all this is over, we're going to be cutting a lot of hair, so ergonomics is important. So also stand and square up your chest to your mannequin. So my sternum is pointed straight perpendicular to my mannequin, and I'm using my middle finger to kind of hold myself away from the mannequin. So I'm kind of using that as a measuring tool right here. Stick my middle finger out like that, and he knows I don't mean anything by it. And make a nice straight cut through there. Now, something that I see in my clipper carnage classes is that people get really tempted to keep cutting that clipper over comb shape around to the front. It's important to leave the squareness here towards the front so we can have some direction in the hair, and so that the hair on top, the fun hair, has something to actually hold on to. So as we're cutting, it's important not to cut out of around the front hairline. So we're going to keep cutting down through here. And this is all the same distance away from the head and perpendicular away from his head. Now, I know I'm kind of blocking the screen here, but give me just a second. And as all of this starts to kind of unfold, it starts to look like a haircut. So what I like about that is if your client is new to you and maybe feeling a little bit nervous about seeing a new barber, he can kind of get a good idea he's getting right off the bat. So look into how this is already starting to look like a haircut, and that's with 2 from the baseline down. So we're going to carry that all the way through into the back hairline right through here. I'm going to switch over because I'm losing power on my other guys. This is a 2-speed replaceable blade clipper. So a lot of folks have these too. And what's nice is the variability of speed in this clipper can kind of help you choose when you really need to chop through hair and when you need to be a little bit more, have a little more form with it. And I think a lot of us have these, but this blade pops off, and I usually use the one blade because it's got a lot of space in between the teeth. It feeds a lot of hair, and like I said, everyone's going to be really hairy after this. We're going to have a lot of hair to remove, so let's chomp into it. It's funny. So many people are bummed that, oh man, I don't have a haircut and I look like a shaggy rat, a shaggy dog. But the cool thing is, man, after this, everyone's going to visit the barbershop. We're all going to go out and we're all going to be looking like $1 million because everybody's going to go back to the barbershop and start looking. It's a patience game. So we follow this baseline all the way down, and again, mannequins don't really have that occipital bone, but I'm kind of pretending he does. And again, we use that occipital bone kind of as a cliff that we jump off of so that we get a nice square shape that falls down through there. So let's have another look. This is my second panel through here, and already we're getting a nice, smooth, consistent looking cut. That really inspires confidence in your gentleman when he's sitting in your chair as well, because he sees you take a couple of really confident strokes yourself with a consistent tension, and then all of a sudden he sees his hair fall into a really nice shape. That's going to make him feel like, oh, man, these people really know what they're doing. So, it's tempting to kind of throw on a clipper guard and just roar through it, but sometimes, we ignore the fact that a clipper over comb technique can be, really, really helpful for making that nice square shape through there. So something that we feel passionate about here at REUZEL is making sure that we don't ever block in a hairline. And another thing that our baseline down technique does is it works in a downhill gradient all the way down to your hairline. Pretty much every haircut we're going to do has some sort of tapered hairline. That doesn't mean it has to be a bald, skin faded tapered hairline, but it comes down to a nice natural termination instead of a stark contrast that gentleman has to then grow out. I think that we add value to our services when our haircuts last as long as possible. And a tapered cut is going to last longer than one that's a bit more blocked in. Now, of course, there's exceptions to those rules. Some people are kind of rocking the mullet thing right now, and some people like to have a blocked in hairline. And, that's their prerogative. But if you're going to be there giving someone the advice on how they should have the haircut, give them something that's going to last a really long time so they really grow to appreciate your work. This is the longest my hair has been personally since like 8th grade. And I think there's probably a lot of people that are getting to that point. But just like everybody else, I'm waiting to have my hair cut. And I think it's important that we all have our hair cut by our professional. We've seen some botched jobs on social media lately. People doing bowl cuts and all sorts of funny stuff and kind of ruining their hair. So something that Nick Fury mentioned in his video, he kind of gave me a little shout out, but I like to say that all of our haircuts have variability and versatility. So I am doing an executive contour type haircut today. I'm just doing a longer variation of it, sort of placing it a little further along in its growth than it would normally be. That's the cool thing about having haircuts that you've kind of memorized, the techniques that you're sort of very familiar with, is that when you get back to them, you can adjust them to your client. Oh, I don't think I quite want to fade. That's fine. I'll just give you a longer version of that executive contour. I'm sure you'll love it. So variability and versatility, I think, is the name of the game. You want to have a lot of options for people. So when we get down into the neckline, we've been doing a lot of that comb flat against the head. It is okay to angle that comb in there a little bit and even work up across the comb through the teeth like so. So this side for now is finished. We're due obviously a little bit of refining on it, but you can see how once this is styled and combed back, we're going to have a really nice squareness to that shape. and this gentleman went from having a whole lot of hair to getting it whacked down to there. That really inspires a lot of confidence in clients. They can see that you can remove a lot of hair visually and confidently. So again, consistency is going to lead to that, to confidence. We all chat about the fact that we mixed up our hair tonic and water. What I like to do is mix that up in actually an old surf tonic or an old grooming tonic spray bottle, and then the hair tonic doesn't gum that up at all. So I've had this one since the grooming spray came out, hasn't gummed up at all. And I mix about half of the bottle of blue tonic and half of water. And I'm kind of curious, go ahead and leave in the comments, what do you think you normally do? How much do you think you normally put? My phone's even ringing here at the barbershop. People really want their hair done. We'll be here for them when this is all over. So we're making this baseline again, right through here, from this baseline down. And our mannequin again has sort of a funky hairline and sort of a funky everything, but we won't judge him for it. And then you use sort of your best judgment of where that drop off should be. And for me, I think that's around the occipital area. So we're going to kind of try to cross this baseline right down through here, through the occipital area. So you can see here where the other baseline stops is right here is where I'm going to start and use that as a guide going forward. So I think sometimes for those of us that don't use the clipper over comb technique, it's intimidating to think, how am I going to make it so smooth with that? But there's a lot of guides that are available to us while we're doing a clipper over comb technique. So let me kind of show you how that works. So I'm pulling this hair here. My baseline is left over from where I was cutting, and all this hair can come right off in one go. Again, I'm using my middle finger as sort of a bipod of keeping the comb a certain distance away from the gentleman's head. And then easy, we've got that shape starting to work in our favor again. That already looks like a haircut. Really, really inspiring your clients that, all of this bulk removal, all of his quarantine hair is coming off and it's going to grow into something great. It's funny, one of my friends said to me, "Oh my gosh, Paul, is my hair going to be normal after this?" Yeah, it's going to be normal after this. We can manipulate your hair to do whatever we want it to. So, we're here to kind of help keep our clients on their toes and feeling good. I always say we got to look good to feel good, and some of us are kind of struggling, being at home all the time and everything. Looking good is part of what makes you feel good. My wife and I had our 4th anniversary last night. We put on some nice clothes, we made some nice food, and tried to pretend like everything was the way that it was before. And that look good, feel good thing was never more true. So I'm curious what people's go-to products for themselves at home is, or do you have a certain kind of regimen of how you start your morning? Because here at the barbershop, and go ahead and leave that in the comments what you normally use. Here in the barbershop, we try to lead people, to the path of least resistance. What's going to make doing your hair in the morning easy? So getting clients on a couple of products not only is good for you because you're selling products, but it's also good for them because it makes it super easy to do their hair. A lot of times guys come in and they say, "I don't really put product in my hair. Don't cut it so that I have to put product in it." But if I can tell you, "Hey man, if you wash it this way, throw a little something like this in and blow it dry it for a minute, you're out the door." Sometimes you can get your clients to kind of switch over and feel a lot more comfortable styling their hair. And I think REUZEL products are so easy to use and so forgiving that it's really fun way to get guys to actually start styling their hair. You can't manhandle your clients quite as much as you do your mannequins. So hopefully when I get out of this, I don't start gripping my guys like I do these. So we're coming down to the point where that's sort of starting to be his natural hairline. We're just going to blend that out a little bit. But what I want to do is show that what a lot of people will use a blade or a clipper guard for, I want to just show how to do it with a clipper comb just in case someone doesn't feel like seeing a lot of scalp exposure. So let's kind of check out how we're going to do that. A lot of it comes from growth pattern. So what I'm doing here is his hair grows out because he's a mannequin and it's sewed onto his head. But we're going to push against that so that it stands up straight. You know, there are some gentlemen, depending on what your hair type is, that your hair does sort of stand perpendicular to your head. It's important to remember what direction that's growing in and kind of go the opposite way.
Paul, we got a question for you, buddy.
Yeah, what's the question?
Do you cut all kinds of hair or just you do old school haircuts only? Mr. James Kinman asked that question.
You know, James, I think it's kind of a lame answer, but it is important to cut hair however your client wants it cut. That being said, you know, your client comes to you for kind of your personal panache on things. So I guess I would say that if we can approach sort of more modern haircuts using old school techniques that for me are really easy, it kind of, you know, moves that along and helps me be a little bit more consistent to it. So let's say someone wants, you know, something with maybe that crash bang that's popular, or maybe even a mullet or whatever. We would just modify our baseline, pull it out. You know, if we were doing a mullet, pull it way out like this, let it drop, and we'll use kind of, you know, our normal techniques and modify them to be modern haircuts. So sometimes it's really fun to cut sort of those more modern or maybe even fad type haircuts and kind of try to put your spin on them. So I would say, long story short, I do cut pretty much any type of hair. You know, we have ladies come through the barbershop as well, and kids, and you know, longer haired gentlemen, all guys. You just got to be able to do it all. Variability and versatility, as I always say. So, as we're looking in here again, obviously it's going to stick out a little bit because he's a mannequin and it grows straight out of his head. The other important thing is that so often we run the curvature of the head and then cut into the crown of someone's head. That causes a lot of problems. One problem is that there's a cowlick and that'll stand right up. And he's going to have a heck of a time putting it down. And if he doesn't want to use REUZEL, it's going to be especially challenging for him to put that down. So it's important to try to remember that from the occipital up, we should try to keep that as a square shape. So his occipital is usually going to be about right in here. Let's try to leave hair all the way out here so that it lays down. A lot of guys will come into your shop and say, oh man, I've got the cowlick, knock it off. I'll always kind of try to suggest, hey, listen, what we can do, let that grow out a little bit. It'll lie down, the light cream in your hair, and we don't have to worry about it. You might not have to get a haircut or something. A lot of times guys really appreciate that. So what I do next is I'll take all of this hair back, and this is also sort of one of those times where you can check and make sure that there's plenty of flexibility up through the top of this gentleman's haircut, which there is. All of this hair is going to kind of fold in and come along. So what I'll do next is we're going to take a section right out of the middle of his head, right through here, and we're going to direct that up and out. So one of our ambassadors, Derek Nieves, has a really cool thing that he says, which is TOG. So that's tension, over direction, and elevation equal graduation. It sounds funny. We all kind of have that Karen haircut idea of like a wedged haircut in the back, but there is graduation in gentlemen's haircuts, and it's important to remember, you know, that that's how we keep that occipital bone and that crown full. So we'll cut palm to palm. We'll use the bottom of our baseline right here as our guide. And I'm going to take that all the way out. So tension, and then the over pulling it out and elevating it, we're going to have a nice graduation through here. And I always suggest to people, if you can't see your guide, don't cut. One of my favorite instructors from further back told me, you know, sometimes it's not about the hair you cut, but the hair that you don't cut. So if you can't see that guide, just go through and give it another go. That could be the difference between, you know, a mistake that's going to take you longer to work out or a mistake that you might not be able to fix. So I'm pulling all of this hair with over direction from each side to that middle parting right here. So kind of going back to that gentleman's question, it's nice to be able to have that kind of one technique that you really know is your go-to, but that you can apply to all haircuts. So, you know, if you're trying to make a really square shape and have a nice blended fade, but you try to find where should I start that blend or where should that blend do most of its transition, that's when you use the clipper over comb technique, lead down from the baseline, and you'll meet his occipital. You'll cut flat against his head there, and then you can blend up through there. And it's a fabulous way to make sure that you don't chase the fade all the way up someone's head. Man, it's funny how much I miss my tools. How many of y'all miss your tools out there? Leave in the comments what you miss most. If you miss your shears, you miss your clippers, you miss the sound of the blower. I know some people are really missing hair color right now. It's such a creative outlet for people, but you know, it's important to try to work on the other things about us and not let our work totally define us. So, all right, now we're coming through the back here and you can see that there's some nice graduation in here, and all this hair is going to kind of lay over his crown and blend. So let's move to the next step here. What we're going to do now, or approach it, is we'll come from the apex of the recession. We'll do a diagonal parting across the top of. And what's cool about this is that it helps you have hair in the crown that you can cut with your base, and hair in the back of the head and hair on the top as well. So we do parting this way from the recession back through the crown. And then we're going to sort of start adding that to the baseline. But what we need to remember to do is that we still need to have it parallel to the ground as we cut. And we also want the front length here to be available to style up into the head. So we'll use a little bit of artistic discretion, and we'll start from the middle of this section right here. We'll cut that across, but then we'll kind of let this sort of graduate down towards the front so we can fit some of that up into, you know, kind of a pompadoured shape or spiked up shape or whatever your gentleman likes to wear. So I'm pulling this straight out. And again, I'm going to use the fine teeth of my comb to make sure I have plenty of control and consistent control of tension throughout there. Consistent control leads to confidence in your cutting. Listen to all those C's. That's alliteration, baby. So we're going to be pulling this out, making her level. Then we'll come forward to where all this extra hair is sort of graduating down off the front. And I'm going to follow, and I'm going to kind of over direct it down. We're getting sort of a nice graduation there. And then this will all sort of start pulling up into his hair. Like I said, if anybody has any questions about our products or one of our techniques or haircuts or anything like that, feel free to ask Curtis and he'll help you out. So we're taking another diagonal guideline right off from where we took it, pulling it straight out like this again. So I've noticed that hard parts are something that people chat about a lot. A cut in established part on a gentleman's head. So for some people, that's sort of a fashion choice. For other people, it's a way to find your part in your head. I think what's important is that you use your, professional opinion on if a gentleman should have one or not. Because I think sometimes if someone has a thin enough head of hair or a thick enough head of hair, they can end up looking really bulky and wide. Uh, or they can be a little too far towards the middle of his head and kind of cause some imbalance in the haircut. So it's an important thing to feel comfortable chatting with your gentleman and saying, hey, that might not totally be the right thing for you. Let's try to find another way to make styling your hair easier for you. I know a lot of people are calling and asking for at-home haircuts and stuff, and that can be kind of stressful, but everybody just hang with it, and we're gonna get through this together, and people are gonna come out of this really appreciating some of the service people. You might miss your local waitress or waiter. You might miss a bartender. Shoot, some people can't even visit the dentist. So people are going to come out and really have kind of a newfound appreciation for you. And I think it's going to really improve our relationships with our clients. So I'm excited to get back to work because I think it's going to be a lot of fun seeing people and talking about, hey, what you do when you were locked up, and how'd you cope with it? How'd you deal with it? Hope everybody in your family's okay. I think it's gonna be a lot of fun getting back to work here. So again, we've got that diagonal parting coming this way. I'll pull it straight out. I'm using the wide teeth to get, to group the bulk of the hair together. And then I use the fine teeth to gain that consistent control. Man, the weather is so wild here. I was getting sunburned one day sitting out front. Wake up in the morning and there's 8 inches of snow out there, but that is Nebraska for you.
Paul, we have another question for you, buddy.
Let's hear it.
Mr. Patrick Lewis, how you doing, Patrick? What have you gotten the most out of working for REUZEL?
Patrick, that's a really good question. I don't mean to get too philosophical on it, but I think as barbers and stylists, we are kind of in this sort of fraternal group of people that could potentially be really competitive with each other, or we could be there and learn together. I think we learn better when we learn together. So what I've come to find is that I am surrounded by cutters and stylists and barbers that are so incredibly talented from all different walks of life, but we inspire each other. We might not be that much alike. We might have different interests or whatever, but I was inspired to not be so competitive with other barbers or to compare myself to other barbers, but just strive to adopt certain parts of other people's barbering into my own haircutting. So I think, in short, I've just been so inspired by watching people kind of squash their egos, learn from each other, stop trying to be, the best or the most popular or whatever, and just do the right thing for your clients. So I'm just excited about being a part of a group that's really, really supportive. And, so often I think, do we try to be the most popular on social media or, be the most well known or whatever? But I think honest to God, the most important part is just doing right by your client and doing right by, the other folks that you work with, and do right by your community. Barbers and cutters and stylists, we just play such a big role in our community as people to chat with. And so I guess the social aspect of cutting is really important to me.
Paul, we got one more question and we'll let you continue on.
Yeah.
Miss Stephanie. Stephanie asked, what are some of your favorite REUZEL pomade mixes?
Okay, yeah, that's cool, and we've come up with some kind of like funny names for them and stuff. I think that Nick chatted about it the other day. I really like putting a water-soluble pomade underneath of a grease-based pomade. So what that helps do is, one, get your client used to kind of the challenge of styling your hair and doing that sort of anti-gravity look with your hair. That sometimes takes a heavy product. So we put a water soluble one in there, we put the grease on top of it, and when they get home, they're a little bit more comfortable with the fact that it washes out a little bit more smoothly. So I would say a lot of times I like to use red underneath of green. Um, I don't know if I have a name for that one or not, but it ends up being really soft and malleable. It ends up being lightweight enough to defy gravity, but then also kind of, washes out of the hair. And I think it has a really cool sheen. I think a cool thing about our pomades is that depending on the color and the texture and the length and everything about the hair, it's super variable and versatile. So you can find a guy who's like, man, you have really nice dark hair. Do you want to kind of accentuate that shiny, healthy dark hair? We'll stick some green on it. Or would you rather it kind of be a little bit more flat or ashen? Is that kind of what you're looking for? So the more comfortable you get, Stephanie, with all of the different products, you can kind of help lead people into the right one and use it in your hair if you can. And then that way you can kind of give sort of an educated guess as to what you like a lot. I've tried every single one of REUZEL's products in my own hair, and I think that's important. So what I'm doing now is we're going to start making sort of the ramped or flat topped portion of this haircut. Now, flat top is kind of a loose term. To me, flat top means that the top is symmetrical, so there's not a bias one way or the other due to a parting. So a lot of our cuts and a lot of our guys, we say all haircuts are just grown out flat tops. And actually, I did a flat top. This is a lady mannequin, but I did a flat top on this one, and you can see how straight up and down the sides are, how nice and flat that top is, and that is going to grow out to be the haircut that we're going to do now. And I think that's really cool. So, if you have gentlemen sometimes in the military like flat tops and stuff like that, it's cool to see them let those grow out and see that they grow into a pretty nice haircut. So I'm going to take the furthest back section of the bottom of that baseline and project it all the way up 90 degrees. You can see it right here, 90 degrees, straight up and down. And again, this is a fun part where I get to use my artistic discretion to see how do I want that top. I've been kind of into the slick back thing lately, so I might not ramp it too terribly much, but just sort of have it be kind of uniform. Is anybody going to come out of this and try something crazy on their hair, some cool cut that you haven't tried before? Because I'm curious. I'm thinking about kind of growing mine out and doing a big, long, slick back. I'll be curious to see if any of you guys are planning on using this extra length to try something fun. And, do that with your clients, too. If one of your clients comes in and, whoa, man, he's looking so long, and he might be the kind of fun guy that wants to try something new, take advantage of that length. Make something good out of something not so good, like being stuck at home and not being able to hang out with your barber. So I'm directing all of this hair right into the middle here. And then we'll do the same thing this way. And I'm pulling the hair towards myself so that I can see through it. I've done a lot of ladies' hair cutting, and just recently, probably within the last 4 or 5 years, started to pretty much just specialize in gentlemen's shapes. But one of the things I really remember about ladies' hair cutting is taking pretty big sections. I mean, you can take a big old mohawk section and bring it all the way up and cut through it as long as you have a guide. And if you go back through, which is our next step, and cut out the extra graduation that you'll get from that, you're A-okay, and that's kind of a fast way to do it. So let's show how that's going to work. When you cut a mohawk parting, you end up getting some kind of extra tails on each corner. So we don't want to dive in too far to this hair and take away the groomed shape. We don't want to undercut this or have any extra contrast. So I'm just cutting out, sort of point cutting, add a little softness, just cutting out to that corner here. Again, if you had enough consistent control while you were cutting through your baseline on the side, you should be confident that you don't have to go back through and cut again. So many times when I'm teaching a class, someone says, you know, this looks good, don't you think? And I say, yeah. Then I come back and they say, I ruined it. And it's like, well, if it looks good, you can just leave it. Sometimes it's not about the hair you cut, but the hair you don't cut. All right. One of my favorite things, again, about REUZEL is that there's a product for everything. I don't think that we're done cutting a head of hair until it's fully blown dry into the shape it's going to be styled, and we've done some texturizing in through the hair. So what we're going to do is we're going to throw some grooming tonic in here. Nick made a good point that the grooming spray is nice to spray through here so that it doesn't get too sticky. That mannequin hair, since it's sort of fake hair, gets really, really gummed up and sticky. So we'll spray some grooming tonic through here. A nice light spritzing. And we're going to use a vent brush to blow through that. Now, the reason that we use a vent brush is partially for the consistency of, or excuse me, the efficiency of blowing a lot of hot air through there as fast as we can. One, so that your client doesn't have to sit there and have it happen all day long. And two, so that we can get lots of direction. So we're going to blow in the same way that we cut. So we'll blow it backing up on the sides. We'll do some pop it in, which is Dutch for shaking around. And then we're going to blow some volume on top. So let's check that out. So if there's any basketball fans out there, I call this a pick and roll. When you go into, where you want to build some volume, you pick into it, you roll it, and you pull it up. You can even see with that grooming tonic, you just want to build volume. So when you see me rolling my brush, that's what we're up to. So it's called form blowing when we just blow right along the shape of someone's head. Now you have to be careful not to burn anyone to do that, but it's a nice way to make sure that, again, we get that nice flat square shape when we blow right against the head. All right. So I think that there is sort of an unfounded negative stigma around using a blending shear in a gentleman's haircut. A lot of people will bash you with thinners or thinning the hair, and that's not actually what it's doing. One of the things that it's doing is giving a little bit of extra space for the pomade to function. So picture if you were trying to fit something in between my fingers right now, it's really challenging. There's not a lot of room. But if we blend out a little bit of that stuff and we get the top open like this, all of a sudden there's this extra room here to fit more pomade in. That's exactly what we're doing here. So we're just going to lightly go over everything and catch the tips of the hair. We're not changing the shape and we're not removing any bulk, but we're opening up the hair to have a little bit of lightness and to also fit some product in there a little bit better as well. In places where you do feel like you need to remove some bulk, like back in through here, back in the occipital area every once in a while, can get kind of full. That's just where you'll move your shear a little bit faster and move your comb a little bit slower. So we're taking away more hair and more bulk as we work if we're opening and closing our shear a little faster than we're moving our comb. You know, Rob, one of the main gentlemen from REUZEL, he always says that shears or clippers are just shears, you know, with a motor. Now, that's exactly right. They just open, and the faster they go, the more hair you'll cut. So depending on the texture of the hair, you could use a blending shear. You could use like kind of one of the chunking shears they call it, or a wider toothed blending comb or blending shear, excuse me. And that's up again to your artistic discretion. I think it's so fun that we get to pick what tools we use, when we use them, why we use them, and who we use them on. One of the most fun things about being a barber. So kind of the flat top component is at the back of this ramp here. We want to make sure that that's nice and even. If this gentleman wants to comb his hair one way or the other, it doesn't matter. If he wants to put it up or put it back, it doesn't matter. If you have a little bit of that flat top component to the back, it's going to help him style his hair. We have a curved-bladed Mizutani REUZEL Shorum texturizing shear. The reason that it's cool that it's got a curved blade like that is we can actually kind of slide cut with it if you move quickly enough and remove some bulk, but also get some direction out of that. So what I do is I go diagonally through the hair one way, and then I kind of do it the other way, and then we'll have sort of an even sort of backwards direction of some lightened up hair. So we can fit lots of that greasy goodness in there. I think it's important while we're all at home, man, keep stretching, keep your core strong, because when we get back and we're going to cut so much hair, don't want everybody throwing their back out or something right when we get to go back. So I usually go through with some cool air after this. That blows all that extra hair out, and it's actually kind of nice and soothing for your client as well because it's nice and cool. So what I'm going to do now, since this is a mannequin, usually I use red pomade because it's easy to get out and it's really smooth and easy to use. I'm going to style this a couple different ways. While we do that, shout out any questions you have for me, anything you want to chat about before we get going. But I'm going to throw some pomade in here. We're going to style them a couple different ways, have some fun with it, and answer some questions for you guys.
Paul, we got one for you. Before you put the pomade in, could you do a close-up of the shear work that you were just doing with the texturizers?
Yeah, totally. The kind of cornrowed one. I guess I say that because I'm a Nebraskan, but I do call it kind of the cornrowing technique because I do it in a row. So let's see how close I can get for you. I'll take the shear like this. I'll put it in and kind of get it corrugated edge. And then I'll lightly move this and not close the shear all the way and just sort of feather through it. I'm probably only closing the shear about a quarter of the way. Like this. And I'm going in the same diagonal direction that I took those partings from the apex of his recession. And man, that'll lighten up your guys. You got some of these dudes with just total manes. It's worth doing that. Now remember, if you open and close all the way, you will make a straight up row in the hair. What you want to do is just feather through it nicely, close the shear maybe a quarter or a third of the way, so that you don't leave a row in the hair. Not that I've done it, not that I have any personal experience for it or have given someone a free haircut because I've done it, but keep that in mind. And I keep combing through so I'm pulling that extra hair out of there as well. So hopefully that got you a little better look at what we're doing, and give it a try on a mannequin if you can.
Paul, Mr. Patrick Bishop asked, do you prefer to slide cut the texturizers or regular shears? I'm assuming the texture shear makes it softer.
Yeah, I would say the texture shear makes it softer, but just like everything, there's a time and a place for all of it, Patrick. So sometimes more through like the nape of the neck, I'll use a straight shear so that it doesn't get too fuzzy. I'm sure you can picture like when you're fading or blending through the back, you don't want hair to stand out. I feel like that happens a little bit less if you use just a regular shear. So I would say, Patrick, yeah, use a regular shear, maybe in the back on the sides, but on the top, man, you can't beat how much softer, like you said, that'll be. So give it a try. Like I said, find a mannequin. I've been cutting on ladies mannequins because I have so many of them. They don't mind. So we work root to shaft to tip through all the way through the hair and get that product worked through there nicely. My clients are always shocked with how much product I use, but our product's not terribly expensive. You get plenty of it, and it's easy to use when you use plenty of it and you use a lot of it. So let's try to get our clients to use, at least a knuckle's worth, if not more, of our product. We'll sell a little bit more of it, and they'll be more satisfied with the construction of the shape that they have. So let's do kind of just a straight back look here first. Okay, right on. Kind of a dapper looking chap. And then let's give them a part, and we'll see what the part looks like. And since it's so even, we can do whatever we want with it. So a parting is another thing that, as a barber or stylist, sometimes you have to help people decide where their part's going to be. You have to base that on where their cowlicks are, where their growth pattern is. Sometimes even if it's a blend, like a gentleman gray, where that gray is going to blend. Which is one of those times where it could be a really good thing to put a hard part into someone's hair. There, now we've got sort of a cool parted look. Okay, that's suited tie occasion right there, man. He's looking good going out after this is all over. A lot of us really like to use these metal picks. So we're going to get some volume. We're going to do just like a big pump. Any other questions, everybody? We've got some new products out. We've got the grooming cream out and stuff, and some of these are really great, and I can't wait for you to get your hands on.
Here you go, Paul. Mike Lowry asked, how much do you work with the client for different product uses and styling techniques?
I'm assuming you mean like how do we consult with them? And Mike, as long as it takes, man, we'll sit and chat before, say, hey, what are you comfortable using? Or are you willing to try something new if I promise it's going to just do wonders for your hair? While I'm cutting, as I'm making a shape, I'll say, our product will apply here. When we use it through here, it'll be great. And then at the end, I'll show him the product. I'll put him in his hands. I'll let him smell them. I'll let him touch them. Sometimes if the guy really wants to, I'll let him put it in his own hair and then style it for him, just so he can get a feel for the product. But really, not just because we're a product representative, but because we're serious about our haircut, the product's the most important part. It's the cement that holds the foundation that you put together for him together. So, it's really important, I think. So yeah, I'll spend probably 5 minutes with a client. And I try to cut most of my clients in 25 or 30 minutes. So, but we can multitask. So here you can see kind of that flat topped ramp shape with a little bit of the lift. If you can, sell the tools that would help your clients use our products as well. A nice pick, a nice wide tooth comb, things like that, beard combs, all sorts of stuff. It's really nice to sort of just be there for your client, every chance you get. So we did kind of a pumped raised look. We could part on both sides. It's just really important. Remember, we want to blend the top length to the side length through this baseline down technique. If you haven't tried it, now's the perfect time to try something you haven't tried before. Pull out a mannequin and knock in a couple baselines. Start with some really long ones. Do 3 or 4 haircuts and just see if it's going to be something that'll work for you. Any other questions I can answer for everybody?
That's a great haircut there, Paul. Can we get a close up? Let's get all around. Let's see what you did there.
I put beard balm on him, but he doesn't have a beard. I think it's cool to talk about our degreasing formula. Someone goes home and they're like, man, I love the grease, but sometimes I want to get this out of my hair. We suggest that you put the conditioner direct hair dry and comb it through, and you'll be shocked. You'll see a strip, kind of a Tootsie Roll of that product build up on your comb spine. So comb that through while you're in the shower, whatever, maybe even let it sit for a little while. Then you'll hit it with our green scrub shampoo. That'll help kind of pull those fibers away and then knock all that media out from the scrub shampoo with the daily shampoo. You're back to clean, back to basics, back to ready to put more grease in there.
Paul, Steve Dunning asked, how do you make recommendations on the use of products for styling when they might not have a blow dryer?
When guys don't have a blow dryer, that's a good point. When guys don't have blow dryers, some of the products that we use are okay to use when your hair is a little bit damp. Like a grease-based pomade won't evaporate out of your hair and won't slide out of your hair just because there's a little bit of moisture in there. So if a guy doesn't have a blow dryer, oftentimes we'll put, one of our stronger products, maybe even gray fiber cream is pretty strong too. Some people like to break down the strength of a product by applying that product to their hair while it's damp. It makes it a little bit more mobile, makes it a little bit more combable, and then when it all dries up, we're good to go. By the way, Steve's my brother, so he has access to lots of good REUZEL stuff, so we'll get him whatever he needs.
Well, thanks for the question, Mr. Steve Dunning. Paul, let's get a close-up of that mannequin. Let's see it all the way around.
All right. So very uniform. Here we go. Very uniform. Nice and smooth all the way through. Just kind of that ramp shape. Nice smooth transition in the back. Well, they like that duck's butt look where you kind of pull together everything and then kind of make a strip down the middle. That's definitely something you could do with this shape. And then kind of that flatter spot in the back that we get just to make sure that it's really uniform and even and easy to style. And that's kind of what we're after with REUZEL. We're after, using our products to make it as easy and as fun to style the cool cuts and shapes that we'll put into your hair.
Great haircut, Paul. You need some great information today. Guys, if you have any more questions, we got about 3 minutes. We'll answer nothing but questions, and then we'll end this live for today.
Cool.
So make your
if you guys
questions known now.
You want to try something new, try doing a flat top. It's fun. It's challenging. We've got lots of cool videos and some other guys coming up. We've got Travis Harmon coming up. We've got a gentleman named Diego who's in Colombia. He'll be presenting in Spanish. And we've got Milky from Scorum that's going to be doing work as well. They're going to be doing some cool work. They're really great guys. I just chatted with Milky the other day. It's a super cool chap. So make sure you tune in and check those guys out, and maybe try something that you're not normally comfortable with. Try a flat top or something that you haven't done before. You've got the time, and you might just be really inspired.
Awesome, Paul. We want to thank you for taking your time out of your nice quarantine day to share your knowledge with us.
Yes, indeed.
Guys, thanks for tuning in today to the REUZEL Facebook page. We will be back on Monday with Mr. Travis Harmon. Travis will be covering some great information, some great product knowledge. Later on in the week, like Paul said, we have Spanish on Wednesday, and we also have Mr. Milky from Scorum himself on Friday. We look forward to seeing everybody, and we thank you for tuning in today.
All right. Stay safe, everyone. We'll see you soon.